Okay, well, good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm Brent Wahlberg. I'm the 2010 board president for the Missoula Organization of Realtors. I also work with RE/MAX Realty Consultants here in town, so thanks again for coming. Real quick, I'd like to introduce our panel here. First of all, we've got Colin Bangs, who's the chairman of our housing report and our the coordinating committee, and he's also a realtor here with Coldwell Banker and Steinbrenner. Sheila Lund, the Vice President and Secondary Market Manager of First Security Bank, where she worked for the last 25 years. Louise Rock, who got here just in time, stuck in traffic, she called ahead. Owner of Professional Property Management and the former president of the National Association for Residential Property Managers. She's been in the property management business for the last 24 years. Jim Sylvester, who's an economist at the University of Montana's Bureau of Business and Economic Research. Nick Kaufman, who is on the committee, and I don't see Nick here today, but he is the Vice President and Principal Planner for the WGM Group. And Dr. George Mesnick, who's right here in front of us here, a respected demographer who has been affiliated with the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard since 1978. So we're just going to get rolling right into this, and we're going to start off with Colin. I don't know if you want to in the stand or what.
Hello. You'll have to page through the book if you want to follow it, because I'm reporting on three different portions that are not in order in the book. The first part, turn to page 4, figure 3. We'll start on the housing sales in Missoula the last year. Yeah. Have to be closer to the mic. In 2009, we had a slight increase in number of sales, up from 994 in 2008 to 1,023 in 2009. One of the reasons for the increased sales was the tax credit that did increase the sales in the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter was much higher than the first 3 quarters. Moving on to figure 2 on page 4 is the other side of the story. The median price of homes sold in Missoula urban area dropped off after a steady climb through 2007. Okay. Did you say you had to go? Does that work? Can you hear me now? Okay, I'll talk right into it. After a steady climb in price from 2001 to 2007, it dropped by, the price range dropped by, median price range dropped by 2% in 2008 and 3% in 2009. Went down from just under 215,000 in 2008 to 209,000 in 2009. This compares with a drop nationally, the national prices of 12.4%. So once again, as we noted last year, that yes, we have hit the recession has hit here too, but not nearly as hard as it has in other parts of the country. We'll point that out more as we go on. It also is a bifurcated market in Missoula in that the lower price ranges did much better than the higher price ranges. If you go to page 5 and figure 5, we've got this showing the different price ranges. And the 3 price ranges on the top, the green and the purple and the blue colors, are the lower price ranges from 0 up to $275,000. And the $0 to $275,000 portion of the market had an increase in number of sales of 12%, where the over $275,000 market was down by 20%. And there were a couple of reasons for that. The 2 most obvious ones were the tax credit for first-time home buyers, most of whom are going to be in the lower price range, and the difficulty of getting financing for the higher prices. The jumbo mortgages are much more expensive, much harder to get than they used to be. So there is definitely a much tighter market in the upper price ranges in Missoula than there is in the lower price ranges. you turn to figure 10 on page 6, you can get a comparison of how Missoula has fared compared to the rest of the country in terms of housing prices. And I noticed in the booklet that the two of the, or maybe this wasn't the one. Anyway, the Missoula being the red number stays up at the top all the way. What this chart shows is they assume that they put everybody's price across the country at 100 back in 1995, just to track how they compared after 1995, what areas of prices went up, what they went down. So the red number on top is Missoula. The orange number, the orange line in the middle is U.S. And you can see that Missoula and the U.S. market climbed fairly steadily up and together up until about 2006, when the housing bubble started hitting the rest of the country. And then the rest of the country has been dropping off. We kept climbing up through 2007, and then one quarter in 2008 took a drop, climbed back a bit, and then settled some more in 2009. And it's also higher than the rest of Montana, which is the one right below it, the purple line, and the whole mountain division, which is the blue line. That's Rocky Mountain states. So those Montana and the Rocky Mountain states followed Missoula up, but then took a much steeper drop going back down. Billings and Great Falls both climbed much lower, and they've had a small drop off too. So again, you can be thankful that you are doing real estate in Missoula instead of one of these other places. Another way to look at a market, real estate market, is days on market. How long does it take the average price to sell? So if you turn to figure 11 on page 7, it tracks time on market in the Missoula market from 2001 until 2009. And you can see that there's been a slow, fairly steady climb on time on market. Something in the 90 to 100 day market range is what's considered to be nationally considered to be a average market. If there's houses on the market longer than that, they consider to be more of a buyer's market. If it's shorter than that, more of a seller's market. So Missoula does continue to have more houses on the market than we can readily sell. Again, more of them on the higher price range than in the lower price range. And moving on to figure 14 on page 10, which tells one of the saddest stories in Missoula and the rest of the country. Sheila will talk about it more in her presentation on mortgage financing. But you can see on this figure that through 2001 through 2006, Missoula County had an average of 60, 70, 80 foreclosures per year. Very low compared to the rest of the country and compared to what Missoula had experienced in previous decades. Then in 2007, it started climbing. In 2008, 2009 took a big jump. It's now up over 250 net foreclosures. This is house actually foreclosed on in 2009. 250 is a large number. That's a lot of people or families losing their house or their investment. It's a real problem. But to put the nation's market in perspective to this, it was interesting to note that only 5 states, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Alaska, had a foreclosure rate in 2009 that was under 2%. And we're still about 1%. So almost all of the rest of the country has at least twice as big a problem as this. And to me, that really points out how bad it is in the rest of the country. It's hard for us to understand here how bad it is in other parts of the country. Moving on to lot sales and new construction. This would be on page 13, table 7. And you can see that the number of lot sales climbed steadily through the 2001 up to 2007. And the price range climbed steadily up to 2006 and then dropped back off in 2007. 2007 was the year that we finally had an adequate supply of lots on the market. Through the first half of the decade, over half of the decade, there just weren't very many lots available. The people who were doing subdivisions mostly were building their own houses and selling the houses. There were not that many lots on the market and available. In 2007, a number of new subdivisions came on just before the demand went away. The decrease in sales in 2008, less than half of 2007, and 2009 dropped again by 50%, is mainly because of the lack of demand. Because now multiple is full of lots. So I don't have the exact figure. We didn't keep the figures before, so the figure this year isn't real relevant, but I do know in taking a quick glance through multiple that there's at least 500 lots on multiple at the present time, and probably that many more that could be put on the market if those were to start selling. And last year we sold only 43. So there is very little demand for building lots in Missoula at the present time. Figure 18, page 13. So the number of lots sold, and just graphically shows you how high it peaked and how quickly it fell. Moving on to figure 20, page 14. Showing the city of Missoula building permits. In 2002 and 2003, we had a huge spike in building permits, but if you will notice the green portion on the top of the line is multifamily. What we had in those 2 years was a huge burst of multifamily, which put a lot of multifamily units on the market and kind of stopped multifamily building for some time, and then slowly but surely dropped off. But looking at the drop in all construction, single family, duplex, and multifamily from 2007 to 2008, 2007 there were 435 total permits. 2009 down to 182. That's a huge drop, and that's the drop that's probably had the biggest effect on the economy in Missoula, on unemployment in Missoula, because if you're building less than half as many houses, you have less than half as many people working on those houses. So the contractors, the subcontractors, the suppliers that supply the materials and the fixtures and the furniture and everything else for the new housing have all struggled greatly in Missoula, and it has definitely contributed to our unemployment rate here. And of the housing market in general, that is the portion of it that is struggling the most. So now moving all the way to page 19, table 9, we have the Housing Affordability Index. It looks pretty complicated, but it's really trying to answer a very simple question. And the question is, can a family with a medium income afford a medium price house? That's the question. And to get the answer, the things you have to know is, what is the medium price house? How high is the interest rate? Therefore, how much is the payments going to be? And then how much do the different families make? So we've broken it down into 1-person, 2-person, 3-person, and 4-person families. You'll notice that the income for the families for 2009 is blank. The other figures we create locally, so they're here. The income figures we wait for Washington, D.C. and HUD to send to us, usually the 1st of March, and they are not here. So what we did to temporarily project the affordability index is to just use last year's figures. If you look at, as far as income goes, if you look at the income, any one of these, they've been climbing a fairly steady rate following inflation. We could have made an assumption that would follow inflation again this year and projected using that, but given the increase in unemployment and the recession we're in now, we didn't think it was safe to make that kind of an assumption, so we just used last year's income figures. So looking down at the housing affordability incomes towards the bottom, you can see that, for example, a 3-person family at 80% went up to 84%. That means that the medium income family with 3 people in the family, mom and dad and 1 kid, make 80% of the money they need to buy this median price $208,000 house. Or to put it another way, they can buy a house that costs 80% that much. It's what they can really afford, which would be about a $160,000 house. So that puts it, excuse me, that puts it into perspective. When you look at this, you look at the four-person family, they can almost afford it, but the reality of the matter is that there aren't anywhere near as many four-person families in Missoula anymore as there are 1 and 2 and 3. Jim probably knows what the average family size is when he gets in his report. So moving on to the next one, figure 31, page 20. It just gives a bar graph of what the affordability index has been. Back in the early 2000s, a four-person family could actually, median family income could actually afford a medium-priced house. And the affordability got worse and worse and worse down to 2007 and has improved over the last 2 years. How much it's actually improved for 2009, we won't know for sure until we get the income figures from HUD. But that's the one good thing about prices going down is affordability goes up. Didn't know what the clicker I was supposed to be using. Moving on to figure 32. Thank you. Page 20. It points out the percentage of income spent on housing. And the blue line being Missoula, the red line being Montana. You can see that in all different age groups, homeowners or renters, that Missoula is less affordable than the rest of the state. It's not so much that we have lower incomes, we have higher prices in general. And there are probably some places like Bozeman that have higher prices and higher incomes. But in general, we do not have as good affordability as most areas in the state. And you also will notice that the renters, the second one down in each one of the age groups, pay more of their income towards housing in almost all cases. The two most dramatic cases, of course, being the 15 to 24-year-olds, which will include a number of college students, and then also the over 65. So if you're over 65 and a renter in Missoula, the average person would be paying 60% of their income for rent. That's really a scary statistic to be thinking about. And I hate to leave you on such a bad note, but it's time to turn it over to Sheila to talk about real estate financing.
Good afternoon. It's good to see a good turnout. I know this is all very important to all of us, and we're happy to share the information that we have. I'm going to start my presentation on page 8, table 3, with the mortgage interest rates for 2009. What I usually do on this particular portion is I look at each individual quarter for the year, and I don't pick the first or the third quarter, or the first or the third month of each quarter. I usually pick the middle month of each quarter, and then I pick the very last day of the year end. So you can see quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, the rates dipped down in the fourth quarter to 4.625. And then right around Christmas, the interest rates went up, and on the very last day of the year, 30-year fixed rate mortgages were at 5 1/4. The next table 4 shows the rates that we've been tracking since 2001, and you can see in 2009, the very last day of the year at 5 1/4 was really the lowest the rates have been for the last decade. And mortgage rates have been stable. The government has been purchasing mortgage-backed securities, which have kept the rates relatively low. They have been indicating since probably last September that as of the 31st of March, they're going to eliminate that purchase of mortgage-backed securities, and I would say that we've already seen a little bit of that activity with some volatility in the rates as recent as yesterday. The 30-year mortgage rates have been at 4.875 for about the last 4 to 6 weeks and have been extremely stable. Yesterday we had 3 rate changes and today we've had 2, so we're already starting to see a little bit of fluctuation in the rates. As far as the activity goes with mortgage lending, we have seen some significant changes that started in 2008 that continued into 2009 with underwriting requirements becoming more restrictive. A lot of the non-conforming programs have gone away, and so it's harder for a lot of people to qualify now. But we did see a spur in sales in 2009 with the first-time homebuyer tax credit that was available. It slowed down somewhat in November as that was approaching its near end, and then the government extended that, and it currently has been extended to April 30th of this year with a signed contract with the closing date on or before June 30th. There has been some significant regulatory changes, and the one big impact that we saw that was implemented May 1st is the HVCC, which is the Home Valuation Code of Conduct. And the primary goal of that was so that there were, it was intended to establish requirements governing appraisal, selection, solicitation, compensation, conflicts of interest, and corporate independence. And really what that was to build a firewall between the lenders and the appraisers, and basically we are not allowed to have any communication with the appraisers, and we have either a third party designated that is not employed by the institution, or you have to have someone that is not involved with the mortgage lending process at all, ordering your appraisals and having any communication that's necessary with the appraisers. Another big thing that we have been dealing with is a new regulation with regards to the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. It's called RESPA, and that primarily is a new tool, a 3-page document for a good faith estimate, which is required for the borrowers, which has always been in effect, but now they've expanded that, and the whole purpose of that is so that your borrowers can shop for a lender. And we've taken up a lot of time and a lot of training trying to implement that process, and that has not been easy either. Down payments have basically stayed about the same. 3.5% down is still acceptable for FHA loans. It was hard to get a conventional loan done with more than 10% down, but now the private mortgage insurance companies are starting to loosen those requirements, and looks like we have some encouragement and possibly be able to do some 5% down payments on conventional loans again if you have good credit scores and decent debt to income ratios. Colin did touch somewhat on the foreclosures, and in Missoula the foreclosures have been relatively low, with about 0.5% of all owner-occupied properties. We track this on a quarterly basis, and if you would, let's look at figures, table 6. If you look at the first quarter of 2009, there were 147 notices. 70 of those were canceled in that quarter, with a net foreclosure of 77. You can see in quarter 4, it was the highest at 150 notices, 79 cancellations, with net foreclosures of 71. But if you look at table 5 on the very bottom line, the net foreclosures for Missoula County for 2009 was 262, which was significantly higher than what it has been in the past. I think that pretty much covers my portion of the report. Louise?
Thank you very much. I've been asked to comment on page 19. I thought it would be interesting to start with the 2008 data for the median rents. I'm a member of the National Association of Residential Property Managers, and prior to 2008, there was no data that was available to the Organization of Realtors for the annual housing report, and also Mr. Mayor requested the information. So we're happy to provide this. 2008 data, what I did as a comparison to compare to 2009, added the 2008 totals together. 2009, the rents are extremely stable. The difference in the total rents in 2009 that were pulled, over 8,000 rental units, was only $34, which the $34 was actually higher in 2008 than 2009. So that means rents haven't dramatically increased in the Missoula area. Further going to the vacancy data, let's keep in mind that the national average vacancy rate in 2009 is 10%, and a healthy rental market is 5%. The 2008 figures show an average vacancy rate in Missoula of about 4%. And then if we move on to 2009, we have an average vacancy rate, again, over 8,000 rental units of 3 to 3.5%, which is, again, an extremely healthy rental market. I thought it would also be interesting to look at the figures so far for 2010. And I have those here with me. They're not in your handout. And the average vacancy rate for January, polling houses, duplexes, multiplexes, and mobile homes, was 4.5%. It's down in February, an average of 3%. And in March, our figures show an average of 2.7%, the lowest being one-bedroom apartments and multiplexes all the way down to 1.1. So that's a very, very interesting, very good market as an analogy there. I've also been asked to comment on the rental assistance portion of your handout, which is on page 20, and I'm very happy to see people here from Missoula Housing Authority in case there are any questions for you. There are 754 Section 8 vouchers available through Missoula Housing Authority, 262 through the Montana Department of Commerce. It's been determined that the amount of vouchers is inadequate to meet the needs of the economy. Reduced tenant incomes have increased the need for assistance by 11% in 2009. That means that tenants aren't able to pay as much for their rent because of their reduced incomes, so therefore the voucher assistance amounts have to kick in further, again up to 11%. The typical amount in past years has been only 2 to 3%. And the other thing that is interesting in this section, as well as what we're finding in the general rental market, is we are seeing less turnover. I think moving is expensive, so people are staying put more. MHA was only able to admit half as many families in the past years because people aren't moving from their units. And on the market in 2009, Missoula Housing Authority and Homeward added 72 affordable housing units, and federal stimulus money helped 41 families totaling $45,000 with their rental housing needs. Also a comment in general with the general housing market is we're not seeing the trend and the influx of people moving to Missoula that we saw in the early 90s. So that was, the Montana dream that we looked forward to, for people coming to the area, and that has definitely slowed. But again, we're very happy to have a good market. So thank you.
Well, I'm lucky. I have some new numbers that were released yesterday. Missoula County population increased to 109,000 from 108,000 in 2008. Half of this was due to in-migration, which is a big slowdown from what has been occurring previously, and half was due to natural increase in excess of births over deaths. The one thing that is changing in Missoula County is fewer people are moving to Ravalli County. This has to do with gas prices and probably the constriction and construction occurring in Ravalli County. Next. Non-farm labor income basically is our proxy for GDP. Up until 2007, we had a growing economy. In 2008, things fell off the map, and in 2009, even worse. We have had a drop in non-farm in 2009 of about almost 2%. And then the unemployment rate. We're all familiar with the Macy's and the Smurfit Stones, but probably the more important factor here is a drop-off in construction and the people that support the construction industry. These people belong to firms that have 20 employees. Now they may have 10 or may not even be in business. So that's the more important thing on the unemployment rate. Now I'm going to turn it over to Brent here to close things up.
Okay. Well, in conclusion, I think we've got a lot of excellent information that we can take away from this report. In the midst of a national housing crisis, our local market has been able to take advantage of the federal opportunities that are available to us, as Colin mentioned, the tax credits, and as Sheila pointed out, the low interest rates. We've seen affordability improve, which is a good thing for buyers. And additionally, since Missoula didn't see a major spike in its values over the years, we haven't seen such a major drop-off as well. I think we've learned some lessons as well from the last few years. For example, that a house is a long-term investment, and it's not an ATM for us to get cash fast. And now nationally, we're hoping what lies ahead of us is much better than what was in the past. New construction sales are projected to increase this year. Unemployment has hopefully receded from its peak, and a brand new generation of homeowners are coming into the market, which is the Generation Y or Echo Boomers, which are actually larger in population than the baby boomer generation. Locally, our market has had its strengths and its weaknesses. As it's been stated, it is a bifurcated market, and we've got certain price ranges that are remaining strong and others that are challenged. There are many national and local factors still at play that is going to affect our market that we cannot fully predict, such as bank liquidity, local affordability, foreclosures, and short sales. It is our conclusion that we are likely at the beginning of recovery, and Missoula's economy and the housing market will show renewed strength in the near future. Of course, only time will tell if we're right about that, but what we are certain is that Missoulians will fight through adversity and continue to celebrate the strengths that we gain through community. So once again, I would like to thank the group up here and everyone who helped out. Also, I want to thank First Security Bank for making these print copies available for us. And now we're going to open it up for some questions. I believe we have a mic roaming around out here, so fire away. Who's got questions?
I have a question for Jim. Could you repeat what you said about people moving to Ravalli County?
Dave, up until 2007, there was more people moving from Missoula County.
He asked about, to repeat the information about people moving to Ravalli County.
Yeah, up until 2007, there was more people moving to Ravalli County than the other way around from Missoula County. In 2007, it turned around, or 2008, it turned around. 2009, probably is going to be even more. We're going to see that more.
Where are you getting that data from?
That data comes from the comparison of IRS records from year to year. We don't have the 2009 data yet, but it should be coming any day.
I can probably do it without the mic. Do you have a sense of how the days on market relates to the breakdown by neighborhood? Specifically, I'm wondering, I guess, if there's days on market by neighborhood, average days on market. And second, how that correlates with the volume of sales. So I'm sort of trying to get at are the sales, the raw sales number determined by inventory that's available, whether that's clearing or just that there's not inventory on the market in, say, University neighborhood versus the Missoula?
What page is that on, real quick?
I'm looking at page 5, sort of this bottom chart, comparing it with page 7, figure 11, local days on market.
I think one of the more important things to take into consideration is that by the time you break it down into this small of numbers, it probably loses some of its statistical validity. One of the reasons we don't try to do average prices on a monthly basis or median price on a monthly basis is we don't have enough numbers. So I think that this figure 6 here on page 5 just kind of gives you an idea of what types of houses are in which areas and what the sales are. But I don't think that you can really draw a lot of conclusions from it. There just aren't enough numbers there to make it that relevant.
What about the average days on market in these different neighborhoods that are broken out? And that would be, I guess, a rough measure of desirability.
I think that would probably be a good conclusion. Yes, I mean there's some areas that just are going to sell more quickly. Or the other thing you have to take into consideration is that the areas where there's new construction going on, there's probably going to be a larger days on market there. The property goes on the market before it's even built. In a lot of cases, so your days on market goes up. And there are some neighborhoods, such as the university area, where people don't move as often. So there aren't as many properties available. So you could make some guesses on what that means, but probably not enough numbers to be real statistically relevant.
Add something to that. It's on?
Yeah. Speak up, because it's a little weak.
Can you hear me? The days on market relates to a couple of issues. One of them is whether there's a demand for the units, whether there are people who are wanting to buy. The other is whether people who want to buy are prepared to move, or prepared to make an offer, prepared to sell, or prepared to whatever. And that's the psychology of the market. And we don't have much of the report here on the psychology of what's going on in people's minds. But that's really what's driving a lot of the kind of very recent trends within the last year or less. And so it's going to take a while for, in terms of people selling homes, to realize that they were very happy that they all of a sudden had become millionaires in 2006 or 2005, and they're not millionaires anymore. They have to adjust to the reality of the new pricing of their houses. That takes some time. From the point of view of people who want to move, they're waiting around to see whether prices are going to go any lower. And they may be prepared to move next week if they were sure it had bottomed out. And that's, again, the psychology of it. So that's really an important part of what's driving these trends on days on market or even sales or whatever. Until that, we know we're at a kind of a bottom in the market now. That's pretty clear. Until the average person figures it out and begins to act according to those judgments, then I think the numbers will move in a different direction. So it's hard to interpret the last couple of months or years because of that.
I have somewhat of a question, observation, just for the whole group if you can. Where I work, and I have a market in London and Missoula and Kalispell, we're seeing probably in the last month a little bit more secondary home financing going through, people offers coming in. And I'm wondering from you folks, are you seeing this possibly as a trend with offers coming in, statistical data from the nation on incomes, if it's starting to turn, or if this has just been kind of a fluke that we're seeing? I'm hoping it's a trend, but I'm wondering if anybody else has any observations or information on that?
Speaking as a practitioner in real estate, I haven't seen it personally, but that doesn't reflect anything in the market. So that might be something worth tracking or keeping in touch with other lenders or other realtors and seeing if maybe that is a trend going up. Absolutely. Colin, do you see anything?
So nobody has trends on how foreclosures or income is coming back up in other states, because we always lag here. So is anybody here in our multiple listing, do we keep data on nation much or just here in Missoula?
It's more here in Missoula.
Wonderful, thank you.
Nobody else? Okay, well, thank you everybody once again for attending. If you do have additional questions or need additional copies, you can contact us at the Missoula Organization of Realtors, or feel free to catch any of us up here. Thank you.